Welcome, everyone, to another wonderful program offered to you by Uprising Together. We are an organization founded by Toddy Blackstone and a group of people who have known her and loved her and supported her work for many years. She has been bringing speakers to Los Angeles and collaborated with the Institute of Noetic Sciences and bringing always inspirational, provocative, important speakers. And today, we're really happy to be able to bring to you Dr. Michael Aaron Mason. He also has a nickname, Dr. Oneness, which you will discover why in a moment. So just to tell you a little bit more about our organization, we meet once a month on the fourth Sunday of every month. And our goal is to bring together not just individuals, but also organizations who are working in common purpose. As you know, there are many nonprofit organizations that are doing similar work, but wouldn't it be wonderful if we could be all working not just in parallel, but in tandem and in full cooperation? So we welcome, please visit our website, uprisingtogether.org, our Facebook page, and have a chance to look at the wonderful programs that we have put together until now. And you'll see the level of genius and also commitment of all the speakers to make this world a better place for all of us. And as our founder loves to say, and we need to do it together. She says, I'm only interested in together. So let me tell you about Dr. Mason. He is a visionary creator and author of OPT for Oneness, a fictional journey to inner peace and higher consciousness. His life path, shaped by both worldly adventures and deep spiritual exploration, makes him an inspiring guide to greater clarity, peace, and interconnectedness. He was born in California, but he embraced European culture at 14 in a Swiss boarding school, later studying on an Israeli kibbutz, graduating from the American International School near Tel Aviv, and serving as a paratrooper in the Yom Kippur War of 1973. These experiences are what nurtured his profound sense of unity and global perspective. Professionally, Michael has explored fields from jewelry to estate planning, while cultivating passions for language, writing, and technology. But his true calling emerged through his deep study of metaphysics, spirituality, and quantum physics. With certifications and advanced degrees in metaphysics, he has explored traditions from Buddhism and Taoism to Kabbalah and A Course in Miracles, which all led to his core insight: all is one. And that's where his nickname comes from, Dr. Oneness. Through his book and blog, Michael, or Dr. Mason, likes to share information, transformative teachings that awaken readers to inner peace and higher consciousness. You can reach him at droneness.com and optforoneness.com. So I'm asking you, I'll give a very warm welcome now to Dr. Michael Aaron Mason.
Hi, my name is Michael Mason, and I welcome you all to my talk today called The Secret to Inner Peace Through OPT for Oneness. OPT is an acronym for Oneness Perception Training. Is abortion right or wrong? Is capital punishment right or wrong? Is it ever okay to go to war? Is it possible to end poverty, crime, hunger, environmental collapse? Does God exist? Are we really all one? Is lasting inner peace possible? These are the questions my book, Opt for Oneness, A Fictional Journey to Inner Peace and Higher Consciousness, opens with. The question all these questions can be answered with one statement. It depends. So that really isn't much of an answer. So the next question that begs is, what does it depend on? And the reason it depends is because our egos want definite answers to questions. They want black and white answers. Is abortion right or wrong? It's right. People have a strong opinion about it. It's wrong. They have a strong opinion about it. And then they'll argue and fight and demonstrate and do all that stuff until we realize that a lot of things in life are not black and white. Instead of either or, we learn both and is a different perception. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of A Course in Miracles, Conversations with God, read The Power of Now, books by Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, familiar with Kabbalah. Maybe you've studied Buddhism or Hinduism. Some people might even be an atheist or an agnostic. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background, what led me to the conclusion that all is one. I was born in Hollywood, grew up in Burbank to wonderful parents as a Christian Scientist with a Jewish father. And in the middle of 5th grade, we moved to Tarzana. A couple of years later, my parents got divorced. Meanwhile, I was forced to go to Sunday school every Sunday and learn the Bible, and the Science and Health with the Key to the Scriptures was the adjacent book to the Bible in Christian Science Sunday school. And I was taught God is love. And then I'd come home, I'd be sitting around the dinner table with my parents, and my mother would say, Michael, you got to eat all your food because there's starving people in other countries, little kids that don't have enough to eat. So that made me ask her, well, if God is love, does he love us more than them? And if I finish all my food, is that going to help them have more food over there? So all these questions came up in Sunday school until I reached age 12. It was a beautiful Sunday morning. I did not want to go to Sunday school anymore. I'd had it. So I faced my mother down and she said, okay, you don't have to go anymore. There was freedom. Now, before that, in 4th grade, I discovered astronomy. And astronomy gave me an explanation of how the universe was formed that was very different from what I learned in Sunday school. And that made me, along with the fact that God doesn't seem to love everybody equally, think that God doesn't exist. It's just some myth that's been made up by people. God didn't make us, we made God. So I stopped believing in God. I called myself an atheist. I thought anybody that believes in God is not questioning enough. After my parents' divorce, I went to live with my father in Hawaii, and then he put me to a boarding school in Switzerland where I experienced European culture, learned French. 9th grade, from there I went to Israel, the land where my father was born, Jerusalem, Palestine, to American parents. And I studied on a kibbutz for 10th grade. They had an American class in English. 11th grade in Israeli high school, 12th grade in an American international school. And then I had a choice of either going into the Israeli army. If I stayed in Israel, it was like an automatic draft. Even though I wasn't a citizen, I still wasn't Jewish, or return to the United States and take a chance with the Vietnam lottery and maybe be drafted to Vietnam. So I told myself, I'm going to stay in Israel. Meanwhile, there's no wars going on here. Maybe I'll get through 3 years. Well, I didn't. The Yom Kippur War broke out 8 months after I was drafted. Meanwhile, what led me to really question things was one night when I was probably about 16 years old in Israel, I could not fall asleep the whole night, thinking about what my mother said about starving children in other countries and comparing their lives with my life. And I'm thinking, where's the justice here? What did I do to earn a father who loves me, a mother, great childhood, being able to travel and experience different cultures? I couldn't fall asleep thinking about it. So I had a lot of questions. Then, when I came back from the kibbutz, my two sisters visited us from California, my father and I in Israel. And I had never in my life seen my father cry. I was 16 years old, and he cut a trip short with one of my sisters to Jerusalem, came back early. And he sat me down at the table and said, Michael, I have to tell you something important. I sat down at the kitchen table across from him. He couldn't say it, he couldn't speak it. He still cared about his ex-wife so much. And I see a tear fall from his eye. I said, Dad, what's the matter? What's going on? So he wrote down, your mother was in a fatal car accident. Well, eventually I learned that it was suicide. She was 37 years old. I hadn't seen her for 2 years. And I was not Jewish, so I wasn't required to do the typical Jewish mourning, depending on what level of mourning. There's 7 days, 30 days, and 1 year. I had a tennis game scheduled that morning. And so I asked my father, well, what should I do now? Should I cancel the tennis game? And he just said, well, no, life goes on. And I really never mourned my mother's death. I kind of hardened my heart a little bit to keep my emotions from being overloaded. That's a picture of my mother. So I searched for many years for answers. I studied Buddhism, and I found out they conclude we're all one. Hinduism conclude that all is one. Taoism, all is connected as one. Course in Miracles, separation is illusion. Kabbalah, love means you're at one with whom you love. I studied religions and other philosophies. And my analytical, logical mind kept me from realizing. And eventually, 30 years later, I dated a woman named Alona who was a brilliant psychologist. And we would sit down and we'd have great conversations about metaphysics and spirituality. And I love to debate because I love finding contradictions and holes in people's arguments. So I was doing that with her all the time. She finally got a little fed up with it and said, Michael, listen, you're in your head too much. You're analytical. You got to open your heart. And I told her, well, how do I do that? I'm willing, I'm open-minded. Tell me how to do it. So she gave me a technique. And she told me, Michael, when you go to sleep tonight, as you're falling asleep, you're going to be in alpha stage. And what I want you to do is visualize walking down a set of stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, you come to a door. You open the door and you see a path leading into a forest. Now, I relate this story through the perspective of another person in my book. And the audience of the presentation, I call them optees instead of participants or whatever. And Tatiana, the wife of the other presenter in the book, she makes sure that the guy that she's giving this technique to knows it's an enchanted forest. It's not just any forest, it's enchanted, magical forest. So anyway, I picture myself walking into the forest and she says, keep an open mind to whoever you might meet or whatever you might meet, an animal, an alien, another person, and just experience whatever happens. So I told her, okay, fine, I'll do it. I don't think anything's going to happen, but I'll try it. I'm willing. So I tried it. Nothing happened. Next time I met with her, I told her, okay, I tried your technique and nothing happened. And she said, Michael, don't worry about it. Listen, you got to do it again. But this time I want you to imagine yourself as a young boy, not as the adult who you are now. You're a young boy. So I said, okay, I don't think it's going to work again, but I'll try it, whatever it takes, right, to open my heart. So I imagine myself walking down the stairs, opening the door. I see a pathway into the forest, walk along the pathway, walking, and I see somebody approaching from inside the forest towards me. And as we get closer to each other, I see it's an adult woman. I'm just a little boy. And then when I recognize her, I find it's my mom. And we embraced each other warmly. And myself that was imagining this in bed sobbed the longest I've ever cried. Tears, my pillow was soaked. So I believe that that experience actually opened my heart chakra. And from that moment on, I started to have amazing insights. So finally, my heart opened through Alona, and insights started coming to me, starting with, I came up with what I call the 3 OPTruths, oneness perception truths. That's all is one, all is energy, all is perception. And you can remember them just by saying, perceive one energy. All 3 of the words put together in a sentence, right? So let's start with all is energy. This is part of how everything is one. Einstein came up with this very well-known equation, E equals mc squared. E is energy, mc is the speed of light, is mass times the speed of light squared. So essentially, it's a form of mass equals energy. So everything's the same. Everything's all is energy. What is this pointer? What is it? Okay, well, it's a pointer made out of plastic and it's got all kinds of electronics in it and everything. But bottom line, it's energy. What am I? Energy. What is love? Energy. What is thought? Energy. There's nothing in the universe that's not energy. Now, I'm going to be talking about Kabbalah. In Kabbalah, I studied it for 4 years. I took every course they had to offer, both in English and in Hebrew. And I'm going to be referring to Kabbalah quite a bit. They said that the universe is composed of 99.99% metaphysical energies. 0.009% is physical. So imagine what we're not perceiving. And that brings us to, well, let's go back. All is energy. Einstein actually said, concerning matter, we have all been wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibrations has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Now, if you ever studied subatomic particles and learned how much space there is in between all of those particles, everything that we see, that we feel is solid, is due to the limitations of the 5 human physical senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. These are actually limiting our perception of infinity. So imagine all the energies and things that we have no perception of. Understanding and applying these OPTruths can actually solve every single challenge of life and society. Now, you want the secret to inner peace? Very simple. It's inner. It's not outer. You got the secret. Now let's all go surfing. So that's really important to keep in mind, because you got to understand there's a big difference between happiness and inner peace. There's a lot of books about happiness out there, how to be happy, right? That's impossible to be happy all the time. You can't be happy when somebody you care about dies or is in pain. You feel you empathize with their pains. It's impossible. But inner peace, look at this picture. Imagine your outer life is the surface of a stormy ocean. Not always stormy, but it can get stormy and we can get upset. And no matter how high your consciousness is, things are going to affect you unless you just eliminate your infinite heart, which I'm going to talk more about. But your outer life, okay, when you have inner peace, as you develop inner peace, your outer circumstances affect your inner peace less and less, but your inner peace will affect your outer life. So the more you develop your inner peace, the less chaos in our outer lives actually bother us and affect us. Now, this reminds me of the Course in Miracles. The book starts out, the teaching starts out with nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Meditate on that for a few hundred years. That is totally mind-boggling. That means that anything that, from our perspective, has a beginning and an end or changes is not real. And it's not just the Course in Miracles. There's Maya. Kabbalah talks about illusion. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. So the soul's desire versus the ego's desire. We strive to feed our ego body's desires. The satisfaction is always temporary. We get hungry. We eat. We have a wonderful meal. It's so enjoyable. A few hours later, we're hungry again. We're never completely satisfied. We have great sex. A few days or weeks or whatever, we want to do it again. It's never complete. Only when we satisfy our soul's desire, we attain inner peace, no matter what our external circumstances. What is our soul's desire? Okay? That talks about the purpose of life, which I'm going to get into. There are several answers to that. But here's probably the most important factor to perceive oneness. That is the perception dichotomy. If you don't get the perception dichotomy, you'll never get oneness, because our logical mind says, okay, you're over there, I'm over here, there's all this space in between us. How can it be possible? They're right. Remember, not either or, but and both. You're right from that perception of the human senses. So we have to awaken a sense, I call the metaphysical sense, called our infinite heart. Now look at this image. How many of you have seen this before? Good. Okay, so you're all familiar with it. This is old woman, young woman. Can you see both of them?
Yes.
Right. Well, one person sees the old woman and the other one sees the young woman. They can't see the other. They can argue until hell freezes over to try to convince the other that they're wrong and they're right. It's not going to go anywhere. But that's a perception dichotomy. Okay? We're viewing it from the same angle, from the same perspective, the same everything. Depending on what you focus on is what you see. Now, there's an issue called victimization that people experience because we don't feel the oneness and the connection with our victimizers. So again, we're perceiving from the physical human perception. Yes, that person, and there has to be that to operate in this dimension of reality. There's laws. There's the victim and the victimizer. One goes to jail, the other one gets recompenses, right? So here's a profound experience I had when I was an Israeli paratrooper in basic training, they saw this American that they thought was probably a little spoiled, even though I was like the top runner in the platoon, and they decided to teach me a lesson. So they started finding little complaints here and there. I won't get into the details of the complaints. They're really silly, and some of them I'm a little embarrassed about, but they had enough complaints where they put me into the stockade, the military prison, for 30 days. I thought, what the heck did I do to deserve this? I felt like a victim. And when I got to the stockade, I was wearing the paratrooper boots, which were red. So everybody there that had black boots saw the guys with red boots, knew we're from the paratroopers. You're from the paratroopers. What did you do? So I told them, and they said, that's total nonsense. You have to write a request, a written request for a pardon. I said, well, my Hebrew's not that good. They said, we'll help you. So I did it, and I got a pardon after 7 days. I was released. So I come back to my platoon, and the platoon sergeant says, Michael, I have bad news for you. Your commander doesn't want you in this platoon anymore because he thinks you're a screw-up. And I thought, oh my God, it's like, okay, I was a victim of being sent in for 30 days, which was nonsense. Now I'm a victim that they doesn't even want me anymore. I have to go to a different platoon and gain the respect of all new comrades compared with the comrades I already know that we have each other's back. We know each other. I'm not doing that. So again, I thought I was a victim. But have you ever had experiences in your life where something really tough happened to you, very difficult, physical, emotional pain, spiritual pain, and you think, why is this happening to me? Well, I want you to know that you're not only one with your fellow humans and everything on the planet and in the universe, but you're at one with the universal plan that quite often knows better what we need to experience than our ego's plan. Okay? And when you keep that in mind, every time something negative that you perceive or misperceive in your life, remind yourself, oh, something better is waiting for me, or some lesson that I need to learn. And if I'm planning on going on a great vacation, the flight is canceled, doesn't bother me anymore. I'm excited to find out what the universe has planned for me. This is very difficult because we've got something I'm going to talk a lot about called the adversary intelligence, the original AI. Adversary Inc., another AI. Okay, it's the same thing. I'm going to get more into that. So, 8 months after I was kicked out of my platoon, the Egyptians and the Syrians attacked Israel on October, Yom Kippur, 1973. Here I am. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Israeli. I was hoping to get through 3 years of service without having to kill or be killed or fight. And now I'm flying on a Hercules 130 transport to the Sinai Peninsula. At the end of the war, fortunately, I didn't have to kill anybody or be shot, but I had some scary episodes of aircraft and delayed action bombs going off. And one scary night while I was in a foxhole and we were waiting for the Egyptians to land right on top of us. At the end of the war, I spoke with buddies from that original platoon, and I heard that they were ambushed one night at 3 a.m. in the Sinai by the Egyptians who were dug in, and it was the worst loss of the battle. It was called the Battle of the Chinese Ranch in the Sinai. I wasn't there. Why? My platoon commander kicked me out. Now, do you think I all of a sudden stopped feeling like I was a victim from 8 months ago? That's a pretty profound lesson. I've got lots of times that have happened to me since then. Again, what do you focus on? Do you focus on what your ego wants, or do you focus on trusting the divine, the universal plan? Now, focus is another form of energy, right? You can focus on what you focus on, you create more of. Now, every day, all day, we're faced with all kinds of different experiences, some negative, some positive. Now, imagine a person that loses a finger, okay? And he's feeling the pain. He's going to focus on that pain and focus on the loss. And what did I do to lose a finger? There's another person that's going to focus on the positive, say, the heck with it, I got 9 more. Somebody loses his hand. Okay, you're going to suffer and cry that you lost a hand, or you're going to say, oh, thank God I've got 2. Okay, and on and on. All right, you can always focus on the positive. I have a friend, my best friend, when it's rainy, he's always, it's a crappy weather. So what are you talking about? It's crappy. This rain is fantastic. Just feel the energy of all the plants that are loving the water. So again, what you focus on, you create more of. Now, wave interference. Check this out. Constructive interference. Okay, you focus on the positive, you amplify it. Okay, you're in sync with positive energy and you bring more positive energy into your life. You focus on the negative, you cancel out the positive energy, and that's called destructive interference. If anybody saw Bruce Lipton's talk, he used a graph very similar to this and discussed this exact issue. Infinite heart versus physical senses. I touched on that earlier. Logic and analysis leads to searching and never finding. When we analyze, we're anal. When we realize, we're real. The word anal is in the word analyze, and the word real is in the word realize. So that's a hint. Our physical senses, including our sense of time, are filters of the infinite and eternity. Now, I mentioned earlier that our physical senses are filters of the infinite, not only of physical infinity, but of time. And time is an illusion. I'm going to talk a little bit about time being an illusion, because in this dimension of the physical world, we can only experience linear time. But actually, the truth about time is that all exists at the same time. Now, David Bohm, the physicist, talked about what he called the implicate world. The implicate world is the world of infinite potential, out of which every energy emanates. Now, again, look at our physical senses. Take our sense of sight. This is the electromagnetic frequencies with that tiny area of visible light that we can perceive. The reflection off of things is that little area right there. On the left side, there's an ultraviolet, and then X-rays and gamma rays, and then the shorter microwaves, radio waves, and we can't perceive any of that unless we use instruments. Now, imagine if you go to the extreme on either side, we don't even have instruments to perceive those. There's probably lots of energies right in this room that we have no idea about, no concept of. That's pretty profound. Now, I mentioned the adversary ink. Adversary's job is to create negative energy to challenge us in life. They manufacture products like envy. The adversary ink, adversary intelligence, creates envy. Now, how do you avoid envy? Through oneness perception. Anytime that's the adversary influencing our ego. Oh, that person has more than me. That person is smarter than me. Prettier than me, more handsome, taller, whatever. Instead, when you feel that person is another part of you, you think, I'm glad for that person. I'm glad for that part of me that has that. I have it through them, since we're all one. Victimization, I spoke about. We play the victim game all the time. Now, there's a story about a young helper of the king. King Leopold had a big kingdom, and he had his favorite helper that was helping him do all kinds of little things. They nicknamed him This Is Good. Why? Because he had a positive attitude about everything, drove people crazy. Anytime anything would happen, he would say, this is good, this is good. Don't worry about it, this is good. So King Leopold loved to hunt, and he gathered a hunting party. He wanted to get another trophy for his big trophy room, and he took his son, he took This Is Good, and some other of his favorite people from his kingdom to go hunting. So they're going looking for something to shoot for a whole day. It's starting to get dark, and King Leopold's, behold yonder meadow, we shall camp there tonight. So they're all making camp, and This Is Good is going to clean his weapon. So he's cleaning his weapon, and he forgot to unload it, and he accidentally fired it. It shot off King Leopold's pinky. He jumps up and he says, what the heck was that, you crazy maniac? And he orders his son to take him back to the kingdom and put him in the dungeon. So his son goes back, because his most trusted servant is his son, takes him back. So they're gone. And King Leopold's pretty macho. It's not going to stop him from hunting. So he has the medic bandage him up, and they continue on their hunt the next day. And they come upon cannibals. Cannibals capture the hunting party, tie them up to a tree, and they're very kosher cannibals. They don't just eat any person. They have an inspection, and if there's anything defective, they don't touch them. So the inspector is going through all the people. He comes to King Leopold, and he sees he's got a finger missing. He says, get rid of him. He's not edible. So he frees him. He goes back to the kingdom, and he gets This Is Good out. He says, this is good. You can't believe it. You saved me by shooting off my finger. Saved him, saved himself because he was sent, wasn't eaten, and saved the son, right? Shot off finger, good or bad? It depends. What does it depend on? Your perception. All is perception. Greed. Oneness perception. I'm going to talk about the definition of a human being. And that's going to address the question of greed. That's another negative energy of the adversary that tries to diminish our inner peace and our outer peace. We've got greed. Generosity. Avoid the greed demon by opting for generosity. Again, remember that graph where you've got the what you focus on? And one of the things I found is I drive around with a stack of $5 bills in my cars. And whenever I come to those beggars on the side of the road at the stop signs and the lights, I hand them a $5 bill. Now, I don't just do, because I'm one with that person. I'm benefiting from giving the opportunity to be spontaneously generous. Without that person, who's an angel in disguise, chose to play that role, to give people the opportunity to be spontaneously generous. So I thank him, even though they say God bless you and so forth. So that's it allows us to play the game of life. Now, this is why In Christian religions, Jewish religions, they've all got the devil, to be afraid of the devil, to fear the devil, watch out for the devil. Well, in oneness perception, we learn to love, and we love the energy that is the adversary that allows us to play the game of life and give us free will. The adversary is your opponent in tennis. Without that opponent trying to hit the ball where you can't get it or hit it back, there's no game. Same thing with chess. You have an adversary. You're on a chessboard, each trying to kill the other's king. Without the adversary, there's no game. So it challenges us. It gives us free will. So we have to learn the energy of gratitude and appreciation. Now, fear is a really big, powerful energy of the adversary intelligence. People go about their lives fearing lack of money, fearing what's going to happen tomorrow. Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle was one of the most brilliant books that everybody should read, that trains you not to worry about the future that's not here. Okay, that diminishes your outer and inner peace today, and not to worry about regrets and mistakes that you made in the past. Just try to learn from them. Fear, a lot of people call fear an acronym for false expectations appearing real. Fear and all negative energies, all fear is ultimately fear of death. If you don't have enough money, you're not going to have enough money to buy food. You don't have enough food, you're going to starve to death. Okay? Look at the fear of losing a relationship because you think you're never going to find somebody better. So people stick with it even though it's not serving them. Fear. We never really live until we stop fear of dying. Okay? Ultimately, all fear is fear of death. Why is that? Because the adversary intelligence has convinced us that this is all there is. This physical body is who and what I am. Okay, if that's true, if I lose my arm, am I no longer me? If I lose any part of me, am I less of me? So it's just a temporary shell we're occupying in this lifetime for these experiences. And it's really interesting when you think about it. Imagination. Imagination is beyond the limitations of the physical universe. The laws of the physical universe do not apply outside of this dimension. Okay? All you have to do is imagine something. You can close your eyes and you can fly. You can fly even if you weigh like a lead. So learn to transform fear into awareness. It's a different energy. Do you fear walking into the street when there's a lot of busy traffic? No, you don't fear it. You're aware of the consequences. If you do something stupid like that, you might get hit by a car, right? You want to preserve this body because there's a purpose for this body to be here right now. How do we stop fear of dying? Perception dichotomy. Again, we know that only our body dies, but who and what we are never dies. So is it true that we die? It depends. All these kind of questions, you could say it depends. Are you coming from the perception of the physical body? Yeah, it dies. Are you coming from the perception of the infinite heart that perceives all those other energies and the fact that our soul is eternal? Then no, we don't die. Now, I want to pause here for a second and talk about the ego. Well, you know what? We'll get to the ego shortly. So all is one does not mean all is same. Oneness is not sameness. Okay, so here's a metaphor for the tree. Imagine this tree is humanity. And the different branches are the different genders, the different religions, the different ethnic groups. And on each branch or group, you've got the leaves. And the leaves are the individual people in that group. Now, you're a leaf. You're looking across at another leaf. You see all the empty space in between. You think that leaf is on the Christian. That's a Christian. I'm in the Jewish. We're very different. There's a Muslim group over there. There's a women. I don't get along with women. Whatever. So we don't see the connection unless we go to where our leaf is connected to the branch, and that branch is connected to a bigger branch, and you keep going. All of a sudden, you see it's one tree, it's one trunk that all those people leaves are connected to. We're all one tree. Now, oneness is not just about we're all one humanity having different experiences, but take your consciousness beyond that to the fact that there's actual consciousness in what we call inanimate objects. A rock. How is that possible? Where's the consciousness in a rock? Well, think about what the rock is made of. Protons, neutrons, electrons, atoms, molecules. Are they not moving? If the movement of the electrons around the nucleus of every atom stopped, that rock would cease to exist. There is an intelligence, there is a consciousness in that rock that knows exactly how to be a rock. And we are part of that. But we're pretending to all be separate, to have our separate individual experiences. So the metaphor of the tree and the leaves on the tree that don't see the connection to the same tree, that's what most humans do all our life, because we just don't see the connection. Now, here's another metaphor for oneness. Imagine all of humanity are cells of the one body of humanity. Did you know that every single cell in our body, whether it's behaving as a skin cell, an eye cell, a bone cell, a sperm cell, or an egg cell, they're all manifesting as all these different cells of one body, but it's holographic. Every cell inside the nucleus has the DNA information for all the other cells. Same thing with a human being. Every human is a cell that's got the DNA of all other human beings. That's another way that we're all one. How do we train ourselves to perceive oneness? Okay, this is a takeaway to remember today. Practice whenever you see another human being, remember the perception dichotomy, because you can't help it. Your eyes see a male, a female, a older person, a younger person. We categorize. That's fine. That's not going to stop. But train your mind, train your thinking, and catch yourself when you think of negative things. And who thought that negative thought? Is that really me, or is that AI trying to manipulate me? Ha ha, I got you, AI. You're not going to win this one. Right? Make it like a game. So this is supposed to be, yeah, okay, there we go. It works. So when you see another human being, penetrate to their infinite heart, which is where the spark of divinity that connects every human being to every other human being. We're all one, pretending to be separate individual energies. Okay, so there's an image of all the human beings connected to all the other human beings through that spark of divinity within each of us. To perceive oneness, we must perceive outside the box of our programming. We are all programmed from the moment we're born by our parents, by schools, by society. We have laws and rules and regulations, and we're taught how to behave and how to think. How many of us can overcome all of that energy that's bombards us from the moment we're born? How many of us have parents that tell us, think for yourself? Whatever they tell you, whatever they teach you, it might be true, but consider that they might be wrong. Well, thank God I had a father that told me that all the time. He said, Michael, think for yourself. And boy, did I love to think for myself. We got to think outside the box. Now, I'll ask you a question. If you are driving 3 o'clock in the morning in a suburb, you come to a street light, it's red. Why would it be red at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why don't they just put it at the flashing so you don't have to stop for nothing? You stop. You look left, you look right. There's no cars within miles. You can't see any car, no car coming across, no car behind you. And you sit there and you wait. How long are you going to wait for that light to change? Or are you going to be a good citizen and think, well, maybe there's a cop at 3 a.m. on this particular street hiding out, waiting to catch me going through the red light? What if it's broken? A couple of months ago, I spoke with a friend of mine and I asked him the same question. And he says, I'm not going through it. If I have to, I'll make a right, a U-turn, and then I'll continue on. But I'm not going through the red light. Okay, well, he's probably never going to do the 9-symbol puzzle I'm going to show you. So if you are one that would go through that red light within a couple minutes of waiting, you have an easier time solving this puzzle. Okay. Now, check this out. The puzzle is 9 circles. And in my book, they actually do this in the seminar that I describe in the book. And it's to make 4 straight lines that go through all 9 circles without picking up your pen. So you can't do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because you broke it. You picked up your pen. You've got to do 1, 2, 3, 4. How are you going to do that? Now, if we had time, I'd give each of you a piece of paper with the 9 circles on it, and you'd sit there trying to solve this. But I'm going to save time by telling you why people can't do it. Because we are so programmed that we create boundaries and boxes even when none exist. And they limit us in our lives. They limit us to perceive oneness. They limit us to achieve things. And has anybody ever seen that guy was born with no legs and no arms? He's an inspiration, a motivational speaker, and he's married. And he's loving life. No arms, no feet, no hands, no legs. Unbelievable. So here's what people do. They see a box where there is none. I didn't draw a box and say, you can't go outside the box to solve the puzzle, because that's the only way you can solve a lot of puzzles, is to think outside the box. So it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. You go outside the box here and here. Solved. Problem solved. Okay, we're going to think even more outside the box. Again, you have to practice oneness perception until it becomes a part of you, because we're not trained. We don't grow up learning oneness perception and the perception dichotomy and the OPTruths in school or high school or college. There's no courses for that. All right, let's do this again. 9 circles. Now the challenge is to do it with only 3 straight lines. How do you do that? You got to go more outside the box. At an angle. 1, 2, 3. You see, you got to go farther outside the box. By the way, you can only do this with circles. You can't do it with points, right? Because, there's only one way to penetrate a point. There's only one angle, but the circle has a space in there that you can touch it.
Push the tripod, the podium.
I wanted the people to see it. Oh yeah, you guys can't see it? All right. Is it blocked?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So now 4 straight lines, right? And let's do it with 1 line. Can anybody imagine how to penetrate all 9 circles with 1 straight line? I'll give you a hint. How wide is the line? How small are the circles? Right? We didn't limit that. Either we didn't say how wide the line could be. So, okay, look at this. Circle, circle, circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I've got a really wide line. Boom, goes through all of them. Right? Think outside the box. We have to. We have to think for ourselves. Now, I'm not going to take time today to show this 3D video I have. So now we're going to talk about the oneness symbol. When I discovered that we're all one, and oneness is a fact of life that most people never consider or get, I thought, why is it not proliferating? It's in every metaphysical, spiritual teachings going back to ancient times. Why is it not well known? So I try to find answers to questions like these, and I realized something. Everything that's ever become anything in the history of humankind has a symbol for it. Religions, Christianity has the cross, Judaism has the shield of David, Muslim has the sickle and the star, Nike has logos. We have symbols for sounds, musical notes, symbols for letters that make words. We have symbols all over the place. There's never been a symbol for oneness. How in the heck are we going to have and share oneness when we have nothing visual? We're visual creatures. How are we going to have oneness without a symbol? So I thought, okay, there's got to be something very esoteric and meaningful that is a oneness symbol. Universe, give it to me. So sacred geometry has all kinds of mystical symbols. And one of them I noticed over time was the Fibonacci ratio. And I'm going to show that, but here are the 10 features that I came up with that this oneness symbol has. First of all, I thought it should have a heart, because heart is a symbol for love. All right? So I looked at the heart and I'm thinking, no, wait a minute, what's with that point? How in the heck did we come up with a point as a symbol for heart? Where's the point on a human heart? So I realized that is a symbol for conditional love, because there's always a point to it. Get the point? So it can't be that heart. And then I decided, well, did it always have a point? And I did some research and I found an Indian pendant designed from sometime between 100 and 300 BC. Look at the bottom of it. There's no point. And I thought, okay, now that makes sense. Maybe that's the symbol for the heart of unconditional love instead of the one that has a point, right? Because when you love unconditionally, there's no point except just to pure love. And then I looked at the yin yang symbol, very well known. It's duality, it's positive, negative, hot, cold. There's a little bit of cold in every hot. That's why you've got the black dot and the white dot in the two black and white symbols. So maybe that's got to be part of the oneness symbol too. And what I discovered is if you expand your perception from duality, expand the circle of the yin yang symbol, it allows the energies to flow in a way that it continues flowing and it doesn't stop. So this is duality. We've got to have something that represents oneness, not duality. There's a Fibonacci. I thought there's something about this. You put two of these together, imagine the mirror image of this. You've created a heart symbol. So what would happen if you had four of them? Okay, you've got two hearts connected as above, so below. I'll get to that. Also, I learned about the circumpunct. Who's ever heard of a circumpunct? That's the official name for a circle with a point in the center. It's the symbol for God and the sun. That's a circumpunct. So it has to have a circle and it has to have a starting point for the energies that emanate from inside that, which is also the implicate world, the infinite potential of all energies that we perceive. And it's got to have, it's infinite. All right. I originally called it the infinite heart oneness symbol. It's got to have infinity in it. Now, had a friend, Rick, who was a brilliant computer guy. And I told him, Rick, this oneness symbol I'm coming up with, it's great on two dimensions, right? You see it right there? So I saw this is a great symbol for people to have in jewelry and pendants to visualize oneness, but it's actually emanating from a globe where the energies go inside and swirl around in a particular way. Can you make it with 4 Fibonacci curves inside a globe and then animate it? And we didn't know what to expect. He did it. So when he animated the symbol in a video form, which by the way, remember OPTruths.com. I've got that video on my website. You can log in and you can see a bunch of videos of other talks I've given. You can see blog articles based on different chapters in my book. And there is the video that shows the animation of the oneness symbol. And all of a sudden, as we're watching it rotate, we saw that. We didn't know that was there. That was hidden inside. That's the Vesica Pisces. The Vesica Pisces, this one on the left here, okay, that's the beginning of everything. That takes singularity to duality, and then there's the seed of life, and there's the flower of life, and energies manifest throughout the universe. So that's a very sacred symbol. The Vesica Pisces is also used as a sign of Jesus. It's the fish sign, okay? And it's the intersection of two circles connected. Now, something else. The more people that connect with this oneness symbol, the more things they'll find. I showed it to my son many years ago, and he said, Abba, was dad in Hebrew. This looks to me like two heads touching and arms reaching out, like that. Connection. Connection. Oneness is connection. Now, notice something else that's interesting here. See the two infinite hearts that don't have the point on the bottom, one above and one below, creating an infinity sign, right? So we've got that infinity sign in there. As above, so below is a hermetic axiom of metaphysics. It's right in there in the symbol. Okay, so here's something interesting. Imagine, and there's a part of my book where the two presenters demonstrate this. Imagine the infinity, the oneness symbol is like in a block of wood, carved wood, right? And I turn it 90 degrees. Okay, what do you see from that perspective? If I take any letter or any number in a block of wood and I turn it 90 degrees, if I take the letter E, what do you see from the edge? One, right? If I take the letter, any number, 0, and it's a block, turn it 90 degrees, you're seeing it only from the edge. What do you see? They all, from one perception of oneness, show the number 1, which coincidentally is also the letter I. Is that a hint from the universe that I am one? Okay, now here's something else very important. Take the oneness symbol and imagine you start out with drawing it in 3 dimensions. And you start in the center of it. And you make that circle and you're coming out in 3 dimensions like this. Okay? And you're going all the way around, back to the beginning. And you turn that, what you did in 3 dimensions, turn it sideways, you're going to see wave pattern. I call those oneness waves. Okay? That's how everything in the universe is connected with everything else, invisible oneness waves. And this symbol is a symbol for those waves too, in addition to everything else. We're going to go on another subject now, which is the ego. Are you your ego or do you have an ego? Most people identify themselves with their ego. It's like, are you your body or do you have a body? Can we get rid of ego? AI uses, Adversary Inc. uses ego to manipulate us. Now, again, is it good or bad? It depends on your perception. It depends on the perception dichotomy. It's great when you use your ego to motivate you to achieve things. Okay, a lot of the great achievements throughout history have come from people who wanted to build esteem for their lives. They wanted to give something to society and also become famous. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but when you let it manipulate you and you get to the point where you're having arguments and fights and my way is right and your way is wrong, when you're arguing with somebody, remember this next time you have an argument, a dispute, because, and this is something I learned from an Eckhart Tolle talk. He said that the person identifies who they are with what they believe, and their ego won't allow them to say, oh, I'm wrong. You know what? You're right. That's infinite heart perception. They'll fight sometimes to the death not to be proven wrong, because they believe that if they are convinced of what they believed with their ego, that's who they are, and that part, that them will die, along with giving up that belief system, which everybody knows is an acronym for BS. So become conscious of your thought. Ask, where did this thought come from? Did it come from manipulation of the adversary trying to manipulate me? Okay, you have a choice, free will. You're driving down the street. This happens to everybody almost every day if you drive on enough, and you know, somebody cuts you off. They didn't have patience to let you pass them. They cut you off. You have to slam on the brakes, and you know, you want to give them the finger. You want to curse them. Okay, now you have an opportunity. You're not a victim of that person cutting you off. You co-created that experience as an opportunity to perceive oneness. How about that? I was thinking outside the box. Huh? Well, maybe that person's in more of a hurry today, had a bad day, or maybe they're just a jerk. But he's part of me. He's the jerk inside of me that's giving me an opportunity to just let it go. Am I going to let it go and just, okay, you know, he can go ahead of me? And how about people that are trying to get in front of you because they got to merge into your lane? So often you have to wait till some kind soul will actually pause to let you in. You're going to be that soul. So that's an opportunity. And that's just a very simple one. Arguments. Okay. Now, another subject is something I came up with, which is the purpose. One of the purposes of life is to raise consciousness. And again, is it about raising our own individual consciousness, or raising the consciousness of our family, our friends, our neighbors, the whole world? Which is it? That's a trick question. It's both. It's all one. So there's not just me. Okay, I can work on me more than I can work on anybody else. Hopefully, if I'm in control of my own ego and I don't let AI manipulate me, then I'm going to raise my consciousness, and that's going to emanate oneness waves with everybody I come in contact with. That's how we raise consciousness. So check this out. There's a balloon of consciousness. All positive thoughts and actions add energy that raises humanity up. Universal plan is up, to raise us up. There's one kind. Why do I call humanity one kind? I'll get to that. All negative thoughts and actions pull us down. Every thought, every action that's negative, that's harmful, adds weight to humanity, pulling us down. That's the power we have. It's profound when you really think about it. Okay, so people want to know, to have inner peace, we want to know, what is my life all about? What's the meaning, the purpose of life? Some people believe it's whoever dies with the most toys wins, or the most money. There's a joke where some Elterkockers, which is, I think, Yiddish for old people. A couple old guys are at their friend's funeral. And one of them looks at his friend and he says, "So how much did he leave behind?" And his buddy looks at him and says, "All of it." Right? So I came to the conclusion that the purpose of life is to raise consciousness, to raise our own consciousness as much as we can. And we have all these distractions, just day-to-day distractions. We got to make a living. We have family. We have accidents and diseases and sicknesses and all these things that bring us away from our consciousness raising. Be of service. Always be of service. The littlest things, but don't be a martyr. Again, you've got that perception dichotomy. It's not one or the other, right? You got to look after yourself. Transform. Okay, so this comes to understanding what a human being is. Let's talk about time. I mentioned it earlier, and I came up with this interesting quote, Dr. Mason quote, if you like. When you try to understand certain metaphysical truths within a certain time frame, you frame yourself. And this is where the question is, well, I don't understand. If God created everything, who created God? Because you're perceiving within a time frame of everything needs to begin and end. Well, think outside that box of limited time. Otherwise, you frame yourself. You can't answer the questions. When I was a kid and I learned about astronomy as an alternative to the Bible, it led to cosmology. Cosmology is the study of the origins of the universe. And I learned about the Big Bang Theory. Everything emanated from an infinitely small, infinitely dense particle that was so dense it didn't have any of that space in between molecules and atoms and subatomic particles. So it was a little tiny particle that expanded out to the whole physical universe. Oh, that's great. What do you think my next question was? Where did that come from? So that's the point when I started to think, instead of being an atheist that doesn't believe in God, I'm thinking, well, maybe they have something. Maybe God, maybe that's God, or God created that particle. And then I learned about time. And if you look at time, all of time exists at the same time. But in our dimension of linear time, we experience it from moment to moment. Now, here's a timeline. Let's say we're on that spot right there. That's the present. In that direction is the past, and that direction is the future. Now, when you're on the linear timeline, you're in the moment, and then there's the past and the future. But what about our perspective out here? We're looking at the timeline, and if you can imagine it going to infinity in both directions, we are perceiving all of time at the same moment. See, that's a perception of our infinite heart. That's our soul's perception. It's fascinating when you think of it like that. And it'll solve a lot of the defective questions people ask about, if God created the universe, who created God? Well, that means something had to have been created in a certain time, right? But some things always existed and always will exist, like our souls. All right. When I studied Kabbalah, I finally heard a definition of God that made me believe that God exists. Definition of a human. We'll start out with that. A human being is a desire to receive. The moment a child is born, a baby is born, doesn't know how to give. It can only receive. Now, of course, receiving and giving are kind of equal. Like when I gave the $5 bill to the homeless person, I enjoy giving. So the child gives just by being a child without even consciously knowing it. You love it if you're normal, right? So purpose of life is the desire to receive that we are born with is a selfish desire. The child needs and wants feeding, care, attention, can only receive. Now, as we mature and we elevate our consciousness, then we need to learn how to transform the selfish desire to receive only for ourselves into the desire to receive in order to share with others. And that's why I'm sharing all of this stuff that I learned. I can't keep it to myself. You know, you want to give it away to people, give them this and help them and hope that they're going to be raising that balloon of consciousness when you share with them. And that brings up the bodhisattva. Has anybody ever heard of what a bodhisattva is? There you go. A bodhisattva is a person that is totally enlightened, doesn't need to come back to this illusional dimension of physicality where human beings often treat each other like shit, but they choose to because they want to come back as a bodhisattva whose purpose in life is to elevate the consciousness of others. That's phenomenal. So transform your desire to receive for yourself alone. Now, imagine desire to receive for yourself alone, a cylinder that is closed on the bottom, and you want to receive, we want to receive the light, we want to receive the energy. Okay? The more we have, the more we can give and the more we can share. But if you're a cup with a bottom closed and you receive the energy of love and light from the universe until you're full, and then it just spills over. Like all these greedy people that have so much money and so many possessions that it's just too much. They can't even handle it. They worry about losing what they have. All right. But you're limited to how much you can receive and actually enjoy and appreciate. So if we transform ourselves from a closed end cup to a cylinder that's open on both ends, we receive infinitely because we're giving out the other side. We can continue to receive, and there's no blockage of flow. I went to a Kabbalah introductory class with Alita, my significant other, this week, and they emphasize flow. Flow is what everybody wants. Flow of good, positive energy. And when you block the flow, there's a limitation to how much we can get. Okay? So that's a human being. What is God? This is the definition I learned about God from Kabbalah. They said God is an infinite energy intelligence. It's not this judgmental man with a beard up in the sky that they call it an anthropomorphic God, the God of the Bible, right? Fear him. Well, they get a lot of stuff in that. Fearing God, infinite energy, intelligence, that I can understand. That's a God I can appreciate. And then, of course, when I learned that we can't blame God for all the victimizations we experience. Okay. All this is fine and dandy. Some people want scientific proof of oneness. This is all too esoteric for me. Give me something scientific that proves oneness, right? Okay, I thought about that. Now, there's a great book by Fritjof Capra called The Tao of Physics. This guy is a German physicist who studied Eastern mysticism. Phenomenal book. And he compares them and shows you the parallels, all right? Ancient mystics, without the science to back it up, knew all is one. They knew as above, so below. They knew all of these laws of metaphysics, okay, that are different from the laws of physics, which is only this dimension we participate in. Now, before that infinitely dense, infinitely small particle, everything in the future that was going to happen existed in potential form. Now, imagine, has anybody heard of quantum entanglement? Okay. quantum entanglement, as far as I'm concerned, is scientific proof of oneness. By the way, they actually did an experiment I read about that proves quantum entanglement. When you have two subatomic particles that are connected and you separate them, they can be light years apart, but they will react together. When one turns this way, the other turns this way. They are connected instantaneously, which violates the speed of light. Now, so here's my thinking. We're all quantumly entangled together, all energies in the universe, all souls in that subatomic particle, and it expanded out. Okay? And we appear to all be separated. They're separate galaxies and stars and humans and rocks, but we're all quantumly entangled because we started out all one subatomic particle. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a proof of proof of oneness, proof of connection. I'm going to talk briefly about love because it's a big subject. I talked about the human love of the heart with a point, because there's always a point to it, and the heart with a continuous flow, like in the oneness symbol. Well, again, when I studied Kabbalah, they explain that you can learn about something based on words that have the exact numerological value. It's called gematria. Gematria is Kabbalistic numerology. And they said, you want to know what love is? In Hebrew, love is ahava. The number 1 in Hebrew is echad. And every letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a numerological value. The numerological value of ahava is 13. The numerological value of 1 is 13, echad. So they're equal. You want to know what love is? It's being at one with another person. Okay? So that's a clue. Also, ahava is 4 letters. Yud He Vav He is the name of God, which is 4 letters. So that's a connection that's very interesting. The 13 boils down in numerology. You add the 3 and the 1, it's 4. Again, Yud He Vav He is God in Hebrew. So this just kind of spells it out. Ahava is 13, love is 13, 13 reduces to 4, 4 letters of the name of God, Yud He Vav He, spell God in Hebrew. Now, of course, when we talk about love, it leads to the question of relationships. Now, I thought about the OPTruths. There's 3 of them. There could have been a 4th one, which is all is relationship. In this dimension of experience, we have a relationship with our spirituality, with people, with things, with our car, with food, with energies. We're in relationship with everything around us. All is energy. So there's a great book by David Data called, I forgot the name, temporarily it'll come back. And it talks about men and women in relationships need to have masculine versus feminine energy. So you have a masculine energy man, and he meets a masculine energy woman. They're going to clash. They're going to both want to be the boss and make the decisions. It's not going to work. But when you have a masculine energy with a negative, the feminine energy, they jive. So the whole subject of relationships is a very long one, which would take a whole nother seminar, but I just wanted to share the idea of romantic relationships. It has to be masculine and feminine energy. Now, we both have both of energies in us. We just have a plethora of one or the other. And it's a challenge in life to know that and try to balance your energies of masculine and feminine, because sometimes one is needed more than the other in life. So how do we achieve inner peace? By awakening to the OPTruth that all is perception and awakening from the MISperception of separation. By awakening to the prime MISperception that separation exists. By awakening to self-love, to the universal plan, which I mentioned. By awakening to the perception dichotomy. Anytime somebody disagrees with you, okay, can we understand a Muslim extremist terrorist that wants to blow us up? That's a tough one. Now imagine you grew up under the same circumstances as that person, with the same influences, and you are not taught to think for yourself. You're taught the Quran, and this is the word of Allah, and that's what you have to go by. You can't think for yourself. We can understand why they do what they do. Doesn't mean that we are okay with it. We can understand. One thing I cannot understand is why there are sociopaths and psychopaths. I'm still working on that part. By awakening to eternal gratitude, okay? Gratitude and appreciation, super important energies that we must focus as much as we possibly can. And it's tough when things are going hard, when things are difficult, to focus on the positive. By awakening to oneness perception, that's the key to inner peace right there. By awakening to your ego as that part of yourself that perceives you as separate from everyone and everything. I studied Kabbalah for 4 years at the Research Center of Kabbalah. I read just about every book that they published. I've been an avid reader ever since I discovered how to read in first grade. I never stopped reading, could never get enough of it. Anyway, in Kabbalah, they talk about how creation came about. I also studied Course in Miracles. I took lots of classes where there was a professional teacher, and I read a lot of books about the Course in Miracles. Trying to read the actual text of the Course is like reading a different language, even though it's English. Anyway, imagine, if you can, a dimension where there's no space, no time, no motion. It's almost impossible unless we close our eyes and we perceive with our infinite heart. So imagine you are an infinite energy intelligence of love and creation, and you exist. There's only you. There's no time, no space, no motion. Well, what do? Your essence is to create. What do you create? Do you just create a rock and that's enough? You're satisfied? You create a tree, a little more sophisticated? Do you create a planet and call it quits? You create a galaxy? Well, imagine this infinite creator who has infinite capacity to create. What it does is it creates a container that doesn't contain anything, but it has an infinite capacity to receive everything that the creator has, because he can give infinitely and not be diminished, right? You have a candle. Imagine that's the creator. The flame is the energy of the creator. It lights another candle. Now it's identical. Same exact energy. Is the first candle diminished at all? because it gave of its light and created another candle flame? Well, that's what happened in the creation. Created an infinite container that dumped all of its wisdom, light, energy, love into it. Now, it actually didn't create it separate outside of itself. It created this gap and space within itself. So we are within God, okay, part of God. Now, compare that with the Course in Miracles story of creation, where it says basically the same thing, that we're created in and with God, and that's where we are, and we never left. And we're dreaming that we are separate, because when we were with God, we had this crazy idea that we could be separate from God. And according to Course in Miracles, it says, instead of laughing at that crazy idea, we felt guilty for having it. I don't buy this story so much, but it does coincide quite a bit with the Kabbalistic story of creation, whereby you have to ask yourself, is the createe equal to the creator in this situation? Well, again, it depends, right? Yes and no. The problem is that, like the Course in Miracles story of creation, we felt guilty receiving all of this infinitude of love and light and ecstasy without doing anything to earn it. That's a mistake. Same as the mistake we thought we could be separate in the Course in Miracles. They jive very well. So I'm going to give you a little parable that kind of explains it in Kabbalah. Imagine you're a benign ruler of a kingdom, and you really love all your subjects. You want them all to have a good life and to be happy and healthy and have meaning in their lives. And every once in a while, you go to the main village of your city and you walk around looking at your subjects. And one day, the ruler, you see a beggar on the street with tattered old clothes, sitting there with a cup, begging for enough money to buy food to survive. He looks miserable. And your heart goes out to that beggar. And you say, why are you sitting here on the street, destitute? I can't see you like that. It hurts me. I'm going to take care of you. Come with me. I'm going to give you a room in the castle, your own car, all the food you can eat, anything you want. I'll provide it for you. The beggar says, wow, okay, sure, I'm coming. And he's enjoying this for a day, for a week, for a month. After a while, he decides, have had enough of this, takes off his beautiful clothes, grabs his rags from the corner of the closet where he threw them, puts them back on, walks away from everything back to the street to become a beggar. The king hears about this and he doesn't get it. So he goes to the street and he sees the beggar back where he found him originally. He says, hey, what's going on? How come you left it all? And the beggar says, don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm okay. You can leave me alone. And the king is beside himself. He goes back to the castle and he can't stop thinking about what did he not give him. He goes back the next day to beg the guy and tell him, look, I must not have given you something that you needed. What was it? Please tell me. What can I give you that I didn't? The beggar says, okay, you really want to know? You couldn't give me the feeling that I earned it. It wasn't mine. It didn't belong to me. So the king says, you know, I still feel bad that you're in this situation where you're not living a good life. Please come back to the castle and enjoy a good life. Do it for me. That was the breakthrough. And the beggar says, okay, I don't need it, but for you, I'll come back. So this is a great parable that receiving and giving have very similar energies. And when God, in this parable of the Kabbalistic story of creation, filled his inner self with this abundance, it was a mistake to believe that we didn't earn it, because just by accepting it, we brought so much joy and fulfillment to God that was enough to earn it. But we decided to give it all back. And that's the illusion we created that caused the Big Bang of the infinitude to appear to separate into the universe. So that's the Kabbalistic story of creation in alignment with the Course in Miracles story of creation. And how can we use that to help us with inner peace? Well, maybe it's true. Maybe this is an illusion of our perception. And the key to life is to raise that consciousness in the balloon of consciousness, so we no longer have to live in this dimension of the universe, and we'll wake up back where we really are all the time with God in infinite life and love. One last thing I want to share with you. This is fun. Kabbalistic sex. Okay? There was a story they gave us in Kabbalah class. They said, remember that desire to receive in order to share with others? Well, the ultimate of that is when you're making love and you have a climax, imagine that the whole of humanity is enjoying that climax with you. That's the ultimate infidelity. Thank you very much.